Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grzegorz Galusek, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this afternoon social finance vibe session titled Opening the Black Box, Explainable AI in Social Finance. Before we kick off, I would like to ask my colleague Joanna to say a few words about SIFTA. SIFTA is the sponsor of this workshop. Joanna, please go ahead.
Um, this session is sponsored by European Commission under the SIFTA program, and SIFTA is dedicated to microfinance and social finance providers. And if we are talking about the services, as you see at the slide, under SIFTA, you can receive such kind of services like capacity building and market development, project advisory, and some ratings and evaluation made by MFR. The SIFTA program is dedicated to the EU 27 countries, and you can apply for the SIFTA to send email when I put the all information in the chat in a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Anna. It's very many of you as recipients, beneficiaries of this program. You know how important it is. You know it allows you to develop your capacity, enables peer-to-peer learning. So there are lots of benefits of joining SIFTA. It's all free of charge. So and it will be continued. So we encourage you to apply. But let's move back to our main topic, the reason for meeting today. A few pieces of household information. The session will last about 60 minutes. We encourage you to ask questions, as many as possible. You can use the chat function. You cannot, unfortunately, this Zoom facility would not allow to make the participants visible, but you can raise your hand, your virtual hand. We'll see it and we'll allow you to speak. So please feel also free to take advantage of this opportunity. To guide us through today's topic, I'm very honored to introduce our experts. So among us today, we have Andrea Martens, Senior Economist at the European Investment Bank. We have Andrzej Krawczenko, Senior Vice President of Business Development at HES FinTech. And also with us today is Radu Toma, Deputy General Manager at Vitas Romania. Actually, they're all senior people. There's a lot of senior expertise. And if you allow me, my dear expert speakers, could you actually say a few more words about yourself? Your backgrounds are so rich. I think it's worth highlighting some of your experience, some of your achievements. So let's maybe take a few minutes to hear in a little bit more detail about their lives, about their careers, and maybe Andrea, you can kick us off.
Gregor, thank you so much, first of all, for having me.
You're
So my background is kind of interdisciplinary, coming both from economics and regulation, actually working in Latin America, in the US, also with things like consumer protection agencies, with remittances. And then in the European Commission, also on data privacy, working with SMEs, trying to avoid discrimination online. And then more recently at the European Investment Bank, working more on the side of AI too. So my background is both. I have a PhD in applied economics and regulation, but I also now I'm officially a nerd because I have an advanced master in AI from the engineering and computer science side. So it's a bit trying to see how can we use AI for good to make the systems better, to help more people with missions similar to those I suppose people in the audience have, while really avoiding discrimination, while making sure that decisions are responsible. And looking forward to
Excellent.
this and to all of your questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this introduction. Moving to Andre Kravchenko.
Thank you, Grzegorz. My background is in impact finance. I actually spent a big chunk of my career working on capital market issues, working on capital access for microfinance. And at some points, I realized it's a more pertinent issue for the industry as a whole. And of course, capital remains hugely important in all of its forms. But really transition into modern technology rails in the way that microfinance and other financial services are delivered to clients, I felt would be kind of the next frontier and the next challenge. And that's kind of where I moved by joining HAS FinTech, which is a company that sort of tracked the development of fintech from its early days by providing end-to-end lending platform solution for various clients in the financial services industry, in the lending industry. And importantly, we understood early on that data is a critical part of success in this business. And so we as a company have been investing in developing AI machine learning tools to help financial institutions really improve their decisioning and base it on data-driven approaches. So that's my background, and I'll share some of the insights from this work.
Thanks. And those who are as old as I am, we remember that Andre started as practitioner, right? How many years at Finca International did you spend, Andre?
Something like 13, so pretty long time.
Good.
Yes.
So we have a practitioner here. And moving to the next practitioner, Radu. Radu Toma, please say a few words about yourself.
Yes, also.
Radu is actually, and please don't be too honest, mention both of the hats that you wear, the scientific hat and the practitioner hat.
Of course. Yeah, as the other participants, I have also blended experience, both in working experience and educational background. I'm in the microfinance sector for almost 25 years. In Vitas, Romania, I'm deputy general manager, and I'm managing the finance, risk, and IT area. As educational background, I started initially with financial, with a master in management, another master in computer law, and later, since the things were evolving and more in the risk management was about analyzing data, I started also, I received a background in computer science, and later, actually this year, I graduate also master in big data science. And with this occasion, I also started to work more towards academical research, not just on practitioner side.
Yeah, excellent. So thank you, Radu. So let's move towards the core of the session. So our goals are pretty honest. I think we want to make the concept of explainability a little bit more tangible for especially for social finance and microfinance institutions that we are inundated with all kinds of new concepts. It is also relatively new, so we want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. And also, as it, of course, it concerns the question: do we understand how the decisions, how AI makes those different decisions? So we want to also explore the trade-offs and analyze whether there is a tension between fast AI-driven lending, but also fairness and transparency. So to get us started, we're thinking of a quick poll. Maybe we could have this poll question on the screen that would allow us to kick off the discussions. I'd like to ask my colleagues maybe to present the poll. So it's a quick question. Would you trust AI to decide your loan approval? Would you trust AI to decide your loan approval? Please take a few seconds. Yes, if the AI is proven to be fair and accurate, maybe, but I'd want a human to double check the decision. No, I don't trust AI make such personal decisions. Depends on the explanation I receive. Not sure. I need to learn more about how AI works in lending. Okay, so seems that maybe we could have a few more votes. I'm not sure how many participants we have. If we could have a few more answers to that poll, that would maybe give us a better orientation as to where we are today, where we stand. But it seems that the majority, at least for this poll, saying maybe, but I'd want a human to double check the decision. Okay. There's more coming, yes. Okay, I think it's clear. We can maybe end this poll. Trying to close it. Okay, so basically this already kind of shows where we are vis-a-vis explainable MFI. But I would like to maybe kick off with Andrea and could you perhaps say what this concept is all about? What is explainable MFI, especially in the context of responsible AI?
Of course, let me just share the slides, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to ask Joanna for her kind help. So let's see if this is working. Okay, is this working okay?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, perfect. So we've all heard a lot about this black box, about not knowing what this is about. And if you see the undertitle I wrote, why is it actually that the fact that something is explainable is the foundation for responsible AI? And so we actually have a central tension here. So on the one hand, like you were saying, Gregor, in the introduction, right? We think, oh, AI is great because it's going to lower the cost. Lowering our cost means we can serve more people, right? There are all these undeserved clients right now. We can actually access them. Talking to some microfinance organizations in South America, they were also saying, oh, this is great because now we can actually use some data we couldn't use before because it was so costly to analyze it for people who didn't have the data. So like you were also saying, Gregor, we can make faster decisions, we have lower costs, meaning we can reach more people. But there is a problem. Like as we're going to talk a lot about today, many of these AI or algorithmic or automated decision-making systems are black boxes. We have no idea how they reach a conclusion. And so the question is, okay, so my loan was not approved, but why? And unfortunately, it's a very close link to the fact that something might not be approved because maybe you live in the wrong neighborhood, and the wrong neighborhood might be one where there are certain kinds of people, which are precisely the people that you want to serve, and that's your business model. So you're doing this to empower the excluded, but with AI, you could actually create new exclusions. So I hope at the end of the session, you will know how to avoid this and actually to go more on the green side of helping more people. I'm going to start with an example that is not AI because I want to actually explain this pedagogically, I hope. So there are three concepts that are very related, which are transparency, interpretability, and what we're talking about today, which is explainability. So let's think of AI as a car. So I want you to ask, what car are you driving? So you might tell me, oh, it's a hybrid car made by Toyota or whichever company you want to add there. And it actually uses, therefore, both electric and fuel power. And then the question is, okay, so do you actually know how this car works? I'm not very good at mechanics, but if you are, you would understand exactly how the engine is working. And therefore, if you hit the accelerator, speed increases. the part that really matters to us is the question. So let's now assume you get a message from the car telling you, oh, I actually had to slow down because the road was slippery, you know? So that's really what we care about. It's this thing that you're able to understand in plain language what is happening right now. And so now in an AI context, transparency. So transparency is that you tell your customers, I am using AI. You tell them I'm using an AI system that was developed by this company. This is the kind of methodology it uses, in this case, a random forest. What data did I use to come up with the system? Well, if you bought it from somebody else, they would tell you this, and then you give the purpose. So it's kind of, okay, I'm using AI, and this is the kind of system I'm using. Then interpretability. This kind of depends a bit who the audience is. Is it for a data scientist, for an auditor? It might be the exact kind of model you're using. But for the final user that you're serving, this says nothing. The person you're using wants to know, oh, actually, I didn't get the loan because my debt to income ratio was too bad, or my credit history wasn't long enough. And so it has to be really centered on customers. It's not a technical concept. And this is both what the GDPR and what the UAI Act are going to ask from you. So this is really, really important. So you need to be able, you might know what the model is, you might know how it works, but you really have to be able to say this in plain language to people. And the people have to be able to understand it, to know what you're doing, and to be able to assess, is this actually fair or is it not fair? And we had this lovely poll at the beginning, right? Which was actually asking, yes, I believe it to be fair. I believe it to be accurate. So that's not the same thing, right? People really care about something being fair. And these are people who already have been excluded. So we want to avoid further exclusion. So I have here a really important case that was went to the European Court of Justice. And it's a really, really important case for the following reason, because the question, so it was a lady, so in Germany, there is this agency that does credit, which is very important. It's SCHUFA. If you want to request, if you want to get like an apartment, you have to give your report. So it's like used everywhere in practice. And so the SCHUFA agency sent a credit score to a bank, and then the banks use it to decide on, are they going to give a loan or not? So in this case, it was a lady whose loan application was rejected. And SCHUFA refused to say how they had reached this particular credit score. And they cited as a reason trade secret. So it's a bit like Google would do, not right? When they would give you a certain order in your, it's a trade secret how we reach that. And so the question here that came to the court was, is generating a credit score automated decision making, which is what is being treated in Article 22 of the General Data Protection Regulation, even if there was a human, in this case, a bank, who made the final decision, right? And very importantly, the decision from the court was yes, because this automated output influenced the decision so much. So this really matters for you in your businesses, because it means that even if you have a human reviewing it, it's not enough. You need to know how this worked. And the fact that something is a trade secret is not enough either, okay? So this is really kind of what is driving a lot of what there is now. So I mentioned right now Article 22 of the General Data Protection Regulation, and this is it. It's already in place. And so it's saying that individuals have the right not to be subject to decisions based solely on automated processing, which was actually the intuition lots of you had when you answered the poll, right? You said, no, I want a human to be involved. And you have the right of meaningful information about how this decision was reached. So this has to be exactly with what we're doing today, right? Explainability. You have the right to contest the decision. You have the right to get the information, right? And like we just learned from this court case, the fact that there's just a human is not enough. The fines are very significant. So you can get up to 20 million or 4% of your global annual turnover, whichever is bigger. So this really matters in practice, in addition to the moral component, right? You don't want to discriminate. And now we have a second layer of regulation, which is the UAI Act, which has to be implemented in most cases by August of 2026. In some cases of high risk, it's going to be later if there's a whole regulated product. What matters here is that credit scoring is a high-risk activity. Other activities involve medical services, devices, and that means it's subject to the strictest requirements. So we already saw what transparency is, right? You need to know what the system does. There needs to be on the humor side. You need to be able to deal with risk. You need to have all the documentation, you need to keep records, and you need to be able to say that you're doing the right thing. And so given this, it's actually the requirements are going to be even higher, even if it wasn't just about doing the right thing, but you don't want to be fined. Now, there are two main approaches to actually doing explainable AI in practice, and I'm hoping that Andre and Radu will talk more about them, but just as a general overview. So the first ones are models, where actually the model itself is very easy to interpret. I'll show you an example in a moment. So it's, for example, okay, we'll give you a loan if, you know, your business is at least 10 years old, okay? So if your business is newer than 10 years old, I just don't give you a business. This would be the rule-based system, but it can also be decision tree. Those linear logistic regressions also, you can somehow explain them. So the way the decision is made, the kind of the model actually makes it quite easy to understand. Oh, okay, I have less than 10 years. I understand. It was refused, okay? So I have an example there, right? If my monthly income is higher than 400 euro, my debt duration is lower than 40%, and if I paid the previous loan, then I will get a yes. So if either of those doesn't comply, I don't comply with either of those, okay, it's fine. I know what happened, right? And so one of these models is the example I have here, which is a decision tree. So decision trees are very nice for this reason. It's rule-based, but it's very easy to explain, right? So here is your debt to income ratio lower than 30%? No, forget it, yes. What's your business age? Then I will check, I will look at your payment history and such. So these are models that by their very design are very nice. And this is not what we typically think about, you know, now when you think about ChatGPT and all those things, those are huge models with lots of parameters that are very difficult to explain. And we don't even know what data they were trained on, right? With copyright and all. So that's really the opposite of this. The second kind of models are exactly that. Black boxes, a deep neural network, right? Lots of layers. You need all this computing capacity. I mean, these other ones, like you could run it on your laptop. Random forest, it's like, I showed you one tree, but you add lots and lots and lots of trees. So you have no idea how it works, or other ones, right? And so here, there are some tools that are Lime and Chap, which in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into here. So that's why I was saying, I was hoping my other co-panelists will cover, we talk about later. But when you do these kinds of models where by the very nature of the model, you cannot explain the decision, you're going to need additional tools, okay? So it's also a decision of yours, which one you want to use, I suppose. So now, why explainability really, really matters to avoid discrimination. So what happens is that without explainability, it's really easy to perpetuate biases. And it's really hard to detect it. So for example, it could be like something I mentioned at the beginning. I'm going to use a postal code because, for example, I know that people who live in that postcode typically don't repay their loans, right? But it's the postcode. But what is the postal code actually measuring? It's probably measuring somehow the composition of people who are there. So maybe immigrant status or more women or things like that. So actually, you are discriminating. It's just that you're not putting in the model gender, but the zip code actually is a proxy for that, right? And then there's the question of accountability. So I'm rejecting a client, but I'm not telling the client why they were rejected. I'm just telling them no. So how does the person know what they have to change? How do they get a feeling of this is fair? How can they know, no, that was a mistake because you did this and actually, you know? Whereas with explainability, you can detect why there was a bias. So there's example below. In the case of Lisbon, so there was this company that was penalizing recent immigrants because they didn't have local credit history to show for, even though in their home countries they had good credit ratings. So in this case, if you figured out why you're saying no, you could actually request additional information like credit ratings from their home countries. And if they're good enough, you can fix it. So it's really this idea of knowing why decisions are what they are. You can improve your models. You can make sure that you're not discriminating. You increase the trust of your clients in you. And you also make sure that you will not get audited or penalized because you actually know what you're doing. So I want to finish with a positive message. That actually opening the black box is not about exposing trade secrets or about like dumbing down technology. And I actually think that this idea of explainability goes very well with the mission that you have in your businesses, because it really goes with this idea that people deserve dignity and they do they do deserve to understand the decisions that affect their economic lives. So actually the explainability is something that goes hand in hand with the mission I think you all have. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions later.
Excellent. And let me check the chat box. I don't see any questions. Of course, you feel free to ask at any time. We will try to address them while we have this discussion. But I wanted to ask Andrea, I'm not sure if I understood well, but just if we know that just historical social finance or microfinance institution data already contains biases. It can be about, I don't know, just as you mentioned, ethnicities, I don't know, just maybe penalizing rural clients. So when we train a new AI models, what would be the single most effective governance check for an MFI that an MFI can implement to prevent the model from simply repeating or scaling the historical biases?
That's
What
a really
would
good
be the most
question.
important governance check to move from black to white box, using your terminology?
So there are different things. So actually the biases can be introduced just because of the data you had in the past. So there's this very famous paper on, actually they were trying to look at, do banks discriminate against women or not? And what they did there, though, it's actually, they looked at data from a bank in the south of Germany from the 60s. And it turned out that at the time, but that's why it's not well done research, it turned out that at the time, women in Germany were not even allowed to have an account without being married, so it's a different story. But like you said there, if I'd looked at the credit decisions then and I used that, that data to then extrapolate now as a good decision, then it's a disaster, right? Because I'm going to have the same bias brought forward. So like you said, the first question is data. So you want to look at the data and you want to look at first, you can actually do some very simple tests. In this case, for example, to see, okay, what were my rates of approving a loan if it was a woman, if it was a man, if it was from ethnicity A, what is ethnicity B? And then you can run the model to look at the decision. And that's always the first check you should do. Whenever you are implementing a model, you look at it and you say, what's the probability of having it approved? If you have like exactly the same characteristics and you're just varying kind of one variable at a time. So you vary being a woman, being a man, being from ethnicity A, B, age, and so on. What's a bit unfortunate is that in practice, a lot of the discrimination happens when you bundle these attributes. So for example, it might not be that it's just a woman, but it's a woman of a certain ethnicity who gets discriminated. And to be totally frank, this is one of the problems of the AI Act. The AI Act only is looking at discrimination by one single category, not by these interactions, which in practice are very important. But you can check for that too. So I would say at the very first check to do that. Now, since resources are limited, and I can share it later in the chat because I don't remember the exact names, but they're free. The best way of actually checking for this kind of discrimination are free tools. One was originally developed by Microsoft, but now it's open source, so anybody can use it. The other one was originally developed by IBM and is open source too. I find the one that was developed by Microsoft easier to use, and you have the code and everything, and you can just kind of apply it. But that's my first advice. No matter what you do, first just do a very simple check to see, by these attributes, am I actually getting different approval rates? And if you do, that's already a very first, flag. And then you can look at more sophisticated things. But I think that's the very least that everybody should do. And I think not everybody is actually doing right now. And then there are ways to actually try to remediate. There's another very important thing, which is, what is the decision variable you're looking at? So let's say that we're not looking at a loan, but we're looking at employing somebody. And I'm looking at CVs from men and women. Okay, it turns out that women have maternity leaves, right? So given that they had a maternity leave, they will have a whole or less experience overall. So then what's the variable I'm looking at for the decision? Or in this case, to decide I make the loan or not? Is it credit repayment or so on? So this variable for the decision is very important too in practice, you see? Because if I'm looking at years in a job continuously, then women will be at a disadvantage. So that's another very important thing. And in practice also, it's hard to come up with this exact, is it repayment of a loan in this case? Is it repayment of all loans? Is it repayment of the loans in the last 5 years? You know what I'm saying? So in addition to data, the decision for which the model is going to decide then what to do is crucial. And there can be lots of problems there. And the last thing I want to say actually is that even if you have no practical experience in AI, you running the business are the ones who have the actual domain expertise. And this is crucial because, to be honest, AI people kind of, they're rather nerds. They often lack common sense, but you're the ones who have that. So it's very important to work together, not to just trust it. So really work as a team and you will know that it makes sense.
Excellent tips. Thank you for that. So let's move to our next guest, next speaker. Andrea, you already mentioned what HES FinTech does, how it supports MFIs, social finance, and more commercial MFIs in the field, in automating the decisions. Maybe you could say, just what do you as HES FinTech, how do you ensure that the decisions are explainable? And maybe what tensions do you see between customization, speed, and transparency in deploying these systems across diverse client contexts? And also feel free to comment on what Andrea already said, that's an encouragement that also goes to Radu. We can engage in a joint conversation about explainable AI.
Thank you, Grzegorz. And yes, I think there is definitely a really nice segue to from what Andrea just covered. So again, for context, we have been working in the space of helping financial institutions improve the lending process from multi-channel onboarding, decisioning, all the ways to collections. And we actively encourage our partners, our clients to leverage data at each stage of this process. So we help companies and businesses, financial institutions automate this process. And we have a platform, HES Loanbox, for that. But importantly, we have Genie Machine, which is our AI/ML decision platform that helps and kind of inserts the data-driven strategies at each level or each rather stage of the lending workflow. Whether you score in leads when you onboard clients, obviously credit decisioning, and we'll talk more about it and explainability of that. Whether you predict or optimize churn rates, which is actually quite crucial for many microfinance institutions, particularly smaller ones, because this constant attrition of clients is a significant issue, and you also can benefit greatly from really understanding which kind of clients are more likely to drop from your roster. And then, of course, all the way through collections. And so, yes, using this kind of a data-driven approach is a kind of a critical way forward. Let's see, I can scroll. Hold on 1 second. Some reasons I'm okay. I got it. Yes. So I've just described a little bit on what are some of the functions and some of the areas where Genie Machine can be useful. We talked about default prediction, doing risk-based scoring, collection scoring, and as financial institutions deploy these technologies, and of course there are many providers in the space, the issue of explainability becomes central. And of course, it's not just kind of something that is optional. Andrea spoke about European AI Act. We as a EU-based company that sells globally, we have to comply with AI requirements. And of course, lending lending as a kind of a functional area is categorized as high risk. So in fact, this AI Act will certainly play a role, more broadly, not just in the European Union, but actually companies that are based outside of the European Union who are offering, let's say, AI services to European-based companies, they have to comply with it as well. And I predict that there's going to be more movement in these directions where regulators in different jurisdictions will be focusing on this matter. And I wanted to connect with what Andrea was talking about, particularly on the biases, because we need to understand that an algorithm, and there are actually different type of algorithm and with different predictive strengths and certain qualities, but an algorithm itself, doesn't have any ethical judgment, right? It doesn't really see or understand this from a kind of a humanistic point of view. So it is critical that this, very powerful system are deployed with human, control and human very robust engagement. And when it comes to biases, just wanted to kind of confirm what Andrea was talking about from our perspective. Clearly, the data that goes into an algorithm is deterministic, and to the extent that you have biases in this data, you are perpetuating this bias in your decisioning. So it's very critical to evaluate, and of course, the most critical aspect of this is assuring diversity in your data. If you are training a model and you want to make sure that in this training data set that you're working with, you have, for example, records of women and men who have applied for loans, and you have a good balance between the two. So because if you just have the data set with a very small portion of women as clients, but your goal is to actually increase lending to women, you'll be really disadvantaging yourself and obviously your clients if you were to use the data set that doesn't include the attributes that are specific to women. So it's very important to engage with data prior to what you actually feed it to the algorithm. And so this is a critical area, and I'm sure that we'll exchange some of these ideas as we move through this workshop. Important part. So we're going to the heart of the matter, which is explainability. We actually have really worked on it, and it was actually well before AI Act was announced. We kind of understood early on that interpretability of data, explainability of data is going to be critical in the relationship between financial institutions and clients, because ultimately, I would actually take a bit of an issue with what Andrea said, that AI has, or is likely to exclude people. I think with the right approach, and actually what we see from our deployment of our solution to clients, we actually see that utilizing this data, the outcome is generally you would see that you can increase approval rates for your loans, because let's face it, many of the microfinance institutions are quite conservative in the credit underwriting, and they would reject you as a client based on a rule-based approach, which is clear and transparent. And how great is it to be excluded from access to financial product just because you have a very clear and transparent or simple to assess decision, let's say rule-based decision. What we actually see that our clients are able to increase loan approvals while maintaining the portfolio quality, and that's kind of what the promise of machine learning and AI is the data that the financial institutions accumulate can be leveraged to approach these applications in such a way where you can actually increase approval. So we see it, these tools, and again, if deployed responsibly and if deployed with robust human oversight, you can actually increase financial inclusion. And of course, we talked a little bit about biases and importance of data preparation. Now, to the heart of the matter of explainability, we actually designed the platform in such a way that we can show the attribute importance in making a decision. And so you can then audit this, this data, you can provide it to your regulator, you can also explain the logic to your client to the extent that the loan application is rejected, and you need to have this explanation, and you're able to see what attribute actually carries the highest weight in making this decision, and this is a critical factor, not just from a kind of a compliance, compliance to AI Act or from customer relationship. This is also important from data management and data preparation, because it also takes a great deal of effort to have this data organized and structured. And what the platform allows you to do is to actually, let's say you have in your data sets, you have thousands of data points, that based on the application, credit application that you may be collecting, or hundreds. When you train the model, you can actually focus on those attributes that are most deterministic, that contribute the greatest to the outcome of the application. And that's also important tool, because then it allows you to improve your customer experience. So maybe instead of having a long form for your credit application where you collect all sorts of data, you can actually see that the most valuable information, 90% of your decision factor, can be covered by just a smaller grouping of questions. So you can actually change the way you onboard clients, and you can change, go from a very lengthy application to the ones that include the most deterministic data. So this is kind of an important factor. And of course, there's still a lot of innovation that needs to be taken place. One of the things that we're seeing in the industry right now, and here obviously ML tools are deployed as well, but the proliferation of cash flow underwriting. This is, I'm in the United States right now, and I just visited Money 2020 in Las Vegas, and there is a company, Nova Credit, that's recently signed up clients like JP Morgan Chase and PayPal, and they provide cash flow underwriting for thin credit file clients, and essentially allowing banks to underwrite clients that they would have not been able to extend credit to based on rule-based, credit scores or any other objective tools. But actually by observing the patterns of activity on the account and patterns of income and expenditures, they're able to offer those credit products to these companies, to these individuals. And that's another example. And obviously to analyze a lot of this transactional data, they will be using some of the machine learning tools. And that's another kind of frontier of how machine learning combined with alternative data is actually increasing access to credit and promotes financial inclusion, not just in emerging economies, but in developed economies, like United States, of course. So yes, so I think that's kind of what I wanted to share, that it is possible to, you have to make an investment, you have to really think this way, but you should be able, as a AI provider, as an AI player, to show this explainability factors that contribute to a decision, not just to clients but to regulators, and frankly, from a management perspective, you need to combine your understanding of what really matters in your credit, because each financial institution has a robust risk management approach. You know which factors contribute, but you can actually use this co-pilot of a system which can provide you with additional insights. And then you look at the attributes importance, you compare and triangulate between your rule-based experience, and then you work those systems in concert to ultimately arrive to a better outcome for your client. And again, in our case, what we're seeing with our clients is it's actually increased financial inclusion by being able to approve loans that your rule-based scoring would have rejected.
Okay,
Thanks, Janusz.
excellent. Thank you for your insights, Andrea. Meanwhile, we have received a question, so maybe we can tackle it before I pass the mic over to Radu. I'm very conscious of time, so don't worry, Radu, you'll have plenty of time to talk about your practitioner's Vitas Romania perspective. So we have this question from Kim. Do you have experience with cases where high-risk AI credit scoring systems may qualify for an exception under the AI Act? We are exploring situations where the credit scoring function is only a minor part of the overall process, carries out limited procedural tasks, and primarily supports human decision making. Based on our reading of the AI Act, this could potentially fall under the exception outlined in Article 49, Item 2. Have you come across this registration obligation in practice, and could you share any insights on what actions are advisable or not in such cases? Kind regards, Kim. Who would like to respond to that? I guess that would take a lot of familiarity with the EU AI Act.
I would maybe
Yes, Andrea, please go ahead.
I would say, and obviously probably it will take a little digging into the question, but generally speaking, I would say that credit decisioning is kind of a definitive high risk category, right? And so it's hard for me to imagine that credit scoring being a minor part of the overall process. Although if the point here in combination with human decision making, yes, that I think. One point I would say that there's in terms of AI Implementation Act, there's still information expected, because ultimately the implementation is scheduled for August 2nd, 2026, full implementation. So next year, there's still some guidelines being developed, and so actually I don't have the answer. But it will be interesting to see if the decision is primarily human, and then you add maybe AI as a kind of a informative, so it's not deterministic. You're still making a decision on the credit application based on your rule-based approach, and you're using on the side kind of a recommendation. Maybe you'll have to provide weight and actually explain that the recommendation from the algorithm is 10% of our decision or 20% of our decision, but it will be interesting to see how this gets interpreted, where the primary decisioning is based on human decision making.
Okay, so any other comments any other things you would like to add to Andrea's comments? Tim, let us know if you're happy with the answer. And meanwhile, I would like to ask Radu, maybe say a few words about this research paper that you co-authored, which focused on applying machine learning to predict insolvency risk of MSMEs. But just more importantly, what have you learned from applying AI in Vitas Romania, and how do both data limitations and also model complexity affect explainability and fairness in practice? So very important voice from the practitioner.
Yes, of course. Try to go a little bit on from our point of view how it looks. Yeah, so in Vitas Romania we already use AI in many use cases, like including document processing, like bank statements, or IDs of the clients, or facial recognition for clients onboarding, or even in the marketing. Most of the tool, advanced tool, for example, we are using Salesforce, which have also an algorithm behind it. The channel the leads based on the interaction of the users. So there are multiple use cases which at the end involve AI.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes about credit risk decision, still remain this issue that was already mentioned, the issue of being black box. So we have to find a way to solve this issue, to not anymore have a black box, because on credit decision it's a little bit different than in other area where it's not so much sensitive.
To move to the white box.
Yeah.
From black
So
box to the white box.
then we having this in mind, we understood that it's always good to have knowledge inside of the company in order to understand and to manage this kind of issues. And as you any institution need to have an HR manager, need to have a chief accountant, or assumptions that also in future will need to have a person that have competency under the AI.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it will be a little bit more difficult if you rely only on external vendors to cover all these issues. Having this in mind and putting investment on developing internal knowledge, this lead us to develop this research paper, large-scale bankruptcy risk prediction for Romanian SMEs using robust machine learning approaches. This was written together with another author from the West University in Timișoara.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's present a little bit what are the results. So what we did, we were thinking, since we are working exclusively with businesses, not with consumer lending, we are thinking, what if we will find a way to use open data, because in Romania there are many sources of information available from different public institutions, and to develop a model that could help us in understanding the risk profile of the clients. And in order to implement this, we built a data set of 4 million company years financial statement for the Spain ranging to 2019-2023. All these are public information acquired through APIs from different institutions. So in a way, this also could solve the bias in the data, meaning that we took the entire database for all the active companies in Romania. So not just our data, not just regional, which could bring additional potential issues. And then one important step was cleaning the database, and this was done having the experience, the past experience working with many clients, many small clients. And what I can tell is that we discovered within the data sets that a big chunk of the data set was so-called atypical companies. Almost 30% of the companies, or for different reasons, like for fiscal reason, they have no income, or they have negative equity. So this could influence the final results, because they are not bankrupt, but they behave as a bankrupt company. In order to solve this, we excluded from the initial data set all these atypical companies, and just to mention that we find also a study from the central bank which tell more or less the same thing, that Romania, this issue is something that is not present in many other regions, specific to Romania. And I mentioned there are mainly fiscal purposes or other, which are not in line with the business. Then we tested 8 different models. We started also with a classical model just to have a benchmark, and then we continue with tree-based models, and also with more advanced, like deep learning models. And wanted to compare to see how the results are changing. Of course, with the classical models, always it's more easy to explain, but the results are not so good. So we have this trade-off between a simple model, very easy to explain, and another type of more complex model, but more difficult to explain the results. And then our preliminary results were showing that tree-based models, actually this light gradient boosting machine and random forest, achieve a very good accuracy and very good results, similar with the results obtained by the deep learning. So then we consider this will be more appropriate because it's a bit easier to explain it. And then on top of these models, we use SHAP as an explainability tool, which bring additional insights. Then about the data challenges, as I mentioned, in the microfinance, and not only in microfinance, but in the small and medium enterprises sector, the data it's very often noisy, it's unbalanced. This kind of small companies, they usually don't have audits, they don't don't have full-time accountants, so always there are bias on their data. So we have to deal with this. We also saw that complex deep learning models, which are harder to interpret, doesn't bring necessary additional accuracy to implement it. So the simple models could be easier to validate. As a recommendation for MFI that want to start using AI in this field of credit risk, our recommendation would be to start always with interpretable models, maybe with this ensemble tree, together with SHAP or LIME tools, which will help to explain the results. Then to build AI literacy and to train their, especially their credit risk people to assess and to interpret the model output. Then also to develop an internal knowledge about AI, which is, from our point of view, it's essential as many other functions which every MFI has. Also to keep the human in the loop and to still involve, at least at the beginning, in the beginning steps, to involve a revision of the decision. because each model depends a lot on the data input and on the specific of the target market. So will be always better to have it, at least in the initial phase, human that will review the decision. So from our point of view, using responsible AI means a sum of accuracy, explainability, fairness, and also to have ownership of how you implement the model, and to still have enough knowledge from within the company, not exclusively working with vendors.
Okay, excellent. So it seems we really have to be concerned more about building a certain AI capacity within the institution rather than thinking only about buying just specific products.
Yes,
correct?
because there are many things that may be related to the specific to the local specific of the data, and always somebody who knows the business, who could faster find potential issues with the data.
Yeah.
Then if you
I
go
actually,
with somebody external which has a best model, but the same model doesn't produce the same results in any geography with any type of data.
Okay.
So the model that I develop and present it, I'm sure that if I will fill in the data from other country, will not give the same results as it happened in case of Romania, because there are specific to each region, each business.
Yeah. I actually would have a question at the risk of maybe taking an extra 2 minutes, if you allow me. On one hand, we can have a certain explanation behind the rejection, but I wonder, is it enough? Just especially for social finance or microfinance institution, should there be any actionable information for potential clients to I don't know, just to change their behavior and successfully reapply, or is it going slightly too much? What do you think, guys? Do you have any thoughts about that? Or would it be beyond the scope of just the institutional mandate? Okay, we explained what happened, but we have to keep ourselves busy with other people, other clients, or could we actually go a little bit further and just help people understand what happened and just help them reapply once they change a certain behavior that disqualified them?
Yes,
Would it make sense?
so maybe Grzegorz, I'll try. I'll be
Okay.
interested to hear what Radu and Andrew thinks about it. I think it certainly depends. If a financial institution has instituted a process by which you provide feedback on every rejected application as a kind of part of your standard operational workflow, that certainly, I think is a pretty challenging task. I think in most cases, probably the most realistic outcome, or realistic approach would be to respond to clients who actually want clarification and want, kind of engagement, and asking what would be needed, what could be done to obtain a loan. I would say from this, we were talking about explainability of attributes. Realistically, we need to accept that there are some attributes that the client may not be able to do much about it. So you can understand what those factors are, but you wouldn't be able to, change some of these things. The most kind of the most probably practical items, certainly would be some kind of a deterministic, ratios. Maybe client has too many, loans with other institutions. Maybe client needs to, improve affordability ratio, for the loan. So in those instances where an institution can provide a very actionable step, I think it certainly should be done. But I think it would be a tall task to look at the attribute from the explainable decision and the factors. There may be some things, but yeah, I frankly find it probably quite difficult.
It was maybe just a provocative question, but thank you. I think your response makes sense. I don't know, Radu or Andrea, if you want to add anything to that. If not, then I would like to thank you for this extremely interesting session. We have learned that it's explainability is just not a certain new technical feature, but it's a trust building tool, and both MFIs or other social finance institutions have to balance automation with human oversight, have to debias the algorithms, the system they have to score their clients. We have to learn how to do that. It seems that vendors such as HES and regulators are actually driving this explainability process. So kudos to you guys. And yeah, I think an important issue would be also to think about building this AI capacity without the institutions rather than thinking about specific products. So
can I, Grzegorz, can I add
sure,
just
yeah.
one thought, and this is to kind of connect
Absolutely.
with what Radu said,
yeah,
in terms of building the capacity within the microfinance institution. And I wanted to underscore, so there's certainly lots of providers, lots of technology that's already kind of exists that you can deploy fairly quickly. Genie Machine is one example. There are many others, and you basically have this tool available to you. But the real work happens before you deploy model training. The real work happens at the level of data, and that's what Radu and Andrei was talking about. And I think you may not need a team of data scientists to crank up your your logistical regression models, but you certainly I think the focus should be on data preparation, data labeling, data integrity checks, diversity of data to kind of proactively look for biases. So I would say that is a critical function, because again, our platform or other platforms would not be of much use to a microfinance organization if you don't have this data set kind of organized and ready to be deployed in a meaningful way. So that's, I would say, a critical area for capacity building, and maybe technical assistance programs can actually focus on that, because that's where I think the bottleneck is in a more kind of robust deployment of some of these tools in our sector.
And that's an excellent conclusion of our webinar. And with this, I would like to thank our excellent speakers, both Andrea, Andre, and Radu. To all of you, big thanks. And also to our participants for your patience. We've gone over time a little bit. Very brief evaluation forms will pop up on your screen, so please take another 30 seconds to fill them up. Otherwise, goodbye to all of you, and see you at the next Social Finance Vibe session. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Grzegorz. And also thank you to John and Justina for all the work behind. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Bye.